So the big thing as well, as you guys all know, when you're cornering off-road, you have to have your weight to the outside of the motorcycle to create and maintain the traction. If you have your hips underneath you, if you're standing too tall, it's very, very hard to move your body around. It's hard to corner the bike effectively. If you have this more bend through your hips, more aggressive position, it mobilizes your hips, so you can really move your weight around on the bike and control it much more easily.
And you can react much better.
Definitely, you have more stability, but a much greater range of motion as well. So from there, we have a good basic standing position. We need to modify it for accelerating and braking. So if I just stay in this position on a big, powerful bike and I give it a handful of throttle, it's going to feel like the bike's leading me behind and I'm holding on with my hands all the time. So when I want to accelerate, the first thing I do is I move my weight forwards, keeping my knees in the same place, the same angle on my hips, and basically just rocking forwards into there. Then I accelerate. This way I'm getting driven forwards with the motorbike, I'm staying on balance, I'm not pulling the bike around, and I'm traveling with the bike, staying nice and relaxed.
And you don't need that much force in your arms, you can be relaxed.
Yeah, one thing we always say to the guys at the schools is you should never be fighting the bike, never holding on tight on the bike. The best way to describe it is this bike is 200 kilograms. It's 100 horsepower. You don't fight something that's 100 horsepower. You know, you're not going to win, so you don't even try. You keep the legs locked in, the core to stabilize you, and the upper body really soft and relaxed. So head forwards to accelerate. Then when you want to decelerate, when you want to brake, a mistake a lot of people make is they lean back. If I lean back, I run out of arms really quickly and I have no stability. So a better way to do it is to, again, think about your hips. When I want to brake, I push my hips back. When I do that, I can bring my shoulders lower and I still have all the flexibility, the movement in my arms. Knees are locked into the bike and I've got really good stability. So you basically end up pivoting from your knees. So head forwards to accelerate, hips back to brake. Forwards to accelerate and back to brake.
Yeah, always in balance without too much force on your arms, and using your legs and your arms also as a kind of a suspension element, isn't it?
Famous extreme enduro rider Taddy Blazusiak, he explains it in a really good way, and that you ride your bike with strong legs, strong core, and soft noodle arms. Yeah.
Cool. That works excellent. I also try to do it always like you explained. What next?
For the cornering, I think is the most important thing, especially on the big bikes. You know, in the terrain we're going to have here, there'll be a lot of loose, rocky corners, and it's very, very important that we have our weight focused over the tires the whole time. So it's important to remember that when you're cornering off-road, especially on the loose terrain, the bike is always going to slide and move. It's impossible to stop it from doing that completely. It's how you manage that and how you control it. So the important thing is that you keep your weight directly focused over the tires the whole time. So it's the total switch over opposite of road riding. So with road riding, you know, we're trying to hang off the inside and keep the bike straight up and down. For off-road riding, we're trying to tip the motorcycle underneath us and keep our weight directly centered over the tires. So for cornering standing up, 1 second.
I hold it.
So obviously we have to lean the motorbike over into the corner. If I don't change my weight at all, if I just lean with the bike, or even worse, like road style, to the inside, my weight is coming further and further away from the tires. When the tires start to slide and move, like they're always going to do, they slide away from me. They're very, very hard to control this. So a better situation, again, we keep the knees locked in, keep the same angle in your hips. If I'm turning to the left, I swing through my hips, and I bring all my body to the outside. So my spine stays straight, my hips are to the outside, my head's out over the contact patch of the front tire. So a good way to think about it is your hips look after the back tire, your head looks after the front tire.
And the weight is on the outside foot peg, yeah.
So the important thing to remember though is if you don't move your body and you push on the outside foot peg, no benefit. You need to bring all that weight directly over those tires. So this way you're creating the pressure down into the ground to create the traction, but the most important thing is when the tires start to slide and move, because you're directly over them, you move with the bike. So what would maybe be a quick, scary slip turns into a nice, slow, progressive movement, much easier to control. So the thing we always say to the guys, if you have a good position on the bike in the corner and you feel like you're starting to lose traction, the way to fix it is just to wait a while. If you're moving with the bike's sliding, you just wait, the traction comes back, no problem, carry on again. So a good thing to remember is always the outside. So for cornering, you should have your weight on the outside foot peg, you should have your hips to the outside, your head to the outside, your elbows to the outside. Always the outside is a good thing to have in your head. Cool?
That's cool, yeah, of course.
And the important thing with that is none of it works without the correct standing position. So if my hips are too far forwards, I can't get to there. It just doesn't work. As soon as I get that correct standing position going, the mobility allows me to control the bike much more effectively.
Well, that's clear. Anything else in this concern? Braking?
So with the braking, with the riding skills, we have a lot of guys transitioning from road riding, street riding into off-road riding. And one of the things the guys struggle with the most is control and feel for the rear brake. And a lot of people are not using the rear brake at all, which is a pretty good habit for street riding, but terrible for off-road riding. And a good thing to remember is your rear brake's job is not to slow the bike down, it's to provide stability and control. So we're trying to use the rear brake to stabilize the bike, keep the chassis nice and consistent, and then we can use the front brake to slow down. Back brake to stabilize, front brake to slow down. So a good thing to remember is you never want to slow down without stability. So there's times where we use the rear brake without the front, but we never use the front without the rear. So if you haven't much feeling for using the rear brake, really important early on is to just try and get that control built into the rear brake so that you're not locking and sliding, but you're holding that pressure into the back of the bike to keep the balance of the chassis. When we race, we use 3 sets of rear brake pads to 1 set of front brake pads.
And never lock the rear brake completely, then you get out of control either. If the rear wheel doesn't spin at all, then you're lost as well.
Yeah, for sure. So the technique, the skill is being able to read the feeling for the back brake. So you're using everything that you can, but you're not locking and sliding. So it can be quite difficult to learn this, especially if you have if you're not used to big motocross boots and the loose terrain. But it's if you're new to off-road riding, it's probably one of the most important skills to work on is that control and that feel for the back brake. And one of the best ways to practice it is to find a long, easy, gradual downhill. Turn the bike off, put the bike in neutral and roll down the hill. Just trying to use only your rear brake alone to slow the bike and control the bike. That way you can hear when you lock the rear wheel, and it's another extra sense to help get you dialed into the feel for the back brake. It's a really good thing to spend your time on.
Chris, we are having the latest motorcycles with a lot of electronics, giving us the chance using additional assistance systems. What do you recommend for tomorrow for general riding off-road with an adventure bike?
Yeah, we're lucky now. We're in a time where the electronics on the rider aids are actually really beneficial. If we go back 5, 6, 7 years, ABS was terrifying, like you talked about before. But now there's the off-road modes and the technology in the ABS and the rider aids are actually very, very beneficial. For me, I very, very rarely turn off my traction control on the 790. With the rally mode, being able to adjust the slip, it's very beneficial. And the off-road ABS mode it's perfect. Like it takes me a little while to develop the trust in it, but there's no need to be switching it off. So for tomorrow, I would recommend for the guys definitely to be running off-road mode ABS the whole time. No real need to be switching that off. And then the drive modes, that really it depends on your feeling for the bike. If you're new to off-road riding, for sure, MTC on off-road mode, all it's going to do is help you. It's very, very beneficial, and especially in the terrain.